We saw some of footy's great rivalries in round 8, with the Lions showing they're still king of the northern state. The Swans win in the Sydney Derby was a season tension release, while the Roos hierarchy put a ban on a media mouthpiece. The Cats triumphed at the G in an almighty tit-for-tat, and Baz Lenker, well, he's just happy he's not playing in Ballarat. To break down a huge weekend of footy and look towards round 9, this is Triple M Footy's Midweek Rub with the two-time St Kilda All-Australian and mafioso Lee Montagna.
Hello, Rabsy. Nice to be here. Look forward to another big week of footy.
Huge week of footy. Carlton and Collingwood superstar Triple M zone, Daisy Thomas.
Hello, Rabbit. Yes, how good is Bailey Smith? Not only what he's doing with the ball, but also creating headlines everywhere when he doesn't have it.
And Damo Vold. Damo Barrett is here as well.
Good morning, boys.
That was a real school teacher. Good morning, Mr. Barrett.
Hand up.
Yes. How is everyone?
Yeah, how are we all feeling after 8 rounds of footy, Damo?
I think we're flat.
Yes.
Judging by our last 30 seconds here,
Oh, we're very
we might need to
boring.
buy.
We actually haven't been doing anything except football, though, which is the issue.
That's
Because
right.
you come in here like, what have you been up to? Who's got something to talk about? No,
Nothing.
I've been doing football. You've been doing football. And Joey,
Been
you've
doing football?
Yes.
3 kids, babies on the way. We've got a bit happening, but other than that, there's not much else
We
going
need something extracurricular, don't we?
Yeah.
Like, maybe like...
on. A life. Maybe need a life outside of footy.
Maybe need a little hit out like Josh Giddey had during the week, where he decided to play a scratch match of basketball.
What about that? Rocking up on it. Was it a Monday night?
Monday night
at Frankston.
Court 5, which they call the Dungeon, at
Yes.
Frankston Basketball Centre.
And there's Josh Giddey just rolling out. That would be pretty cool.
What's
actually.
he worth, Josh Giddey?
We looked it up yesterday. He's $13.3 million US a year this year, and his next contract should be about $257 million US.
And they don't have an issue with him playing Div 5 at Frankston.
Do you reckon they'd know? Would the Chicago Bulls know that
They
he
know now.
You reckon?
Oh, yeah.
How would they find out?
Oh, they're big fans of footy. And,
They saw on Triple M Footy social media page.
Yeah.
They follow the Frankston Bombers on
Footy on 9 on Twitter.
It would have been on 7, Rabs.
Yes, it would have been.
But imagine if, and we've seen it, fill in.
Yeah.
Old knackers from Collingwood.
Your mate.
My mate.
Did you play with him, Braden Sire?
No.
Was it way before after you?
That must have been way after
Braden
me.
Sire.
We can't do anything.
Yeah.
No.
Cricket, basketball.
Well, you're not allowed to go water skiing, not allowed to do anything.
It's
As you're a
written
footy
into your
player.
contract you can't snow ski, isn't it?
I don't know if it actually is. It?
No, I think it is.
What does it say? I can't remember
It
any of
says you can't do snow skiing.
Well, Ollie Wines, of course, had the incident,
Yeah.
and now he no longer does water skiing up in
Water skiing.
Echuca.
Popped the
because
shoulder,
popped
didn't
the
he?
shoulder.
Yeah.
And that's probably the reason why they don't want us
But
doing
it's
it.
different because we all still get paid. Like football players would still get paid anyway. I don't think there's a. It has to be really significant, I would think, for the club to not have to pay you. Where in American sport, it's different. You can actually, if you get injured, they can just
Stop paying
you.
Didn't Christian Petrarca, before he even played a game, rolled an ankle, didn't he, I think? Or
Playing
did a knee?
basketball?
Or, of some
Charlie
semi-serious
wasn't one of
nature.
Charlie Curnow's knee injuries playing basketball?
I think that was the cover-up story.
Have you ever done anything, Days, in your contract that maybe you shouldn't have?
Oh, well, I played basketball a lot. No, I don't think. I surfed, but I told the club I was going to do that, and they didn't have an issue with it. I didn't really. I don't think I did anything. I'm no good at basketball, so I had no interest in playing.
You once tried to fly overseas without telling the club, eh? Which you talk about on this show.
Small, go overseas, a small sea, just over to Fiji.
I'd say
Small C.
speaking of Josh Giddey, it just bobbed up on my Insta before, Rabsy. You'd like this. He's a super coach player. He's in the top 1% of super coach players in Australia. He's ranked 6,000th out of 180,000. So he's following the AFL that closely that his super coach team is off the charts.
How good.
That's pretty impressive.
Where
He
are you
loves it.
ranked in that?
I've dropped down. I was high. Now I'm like, I don't know, 18,000th or something. I've dropped away in my super coach
Aren't you an
team.
ambassador
Joey's
for it?
Jets, yeah. Well, Tom Stewart's killed me. I've had him in my team and a few others. So anyway, no one wants to talk about my super coach. You play super coach today, mate?
No, I don't. No,
You would have as a kid, some of those nerdy games. No.
Space Invaders?
Spicy, yes.
That's about where we're at after round 8. We're talking
dear.
about Space
Wrap it
Invaders
up.
and Super Coach.
See you next week.
We're going to have to get into fair dinkum or Fugazi and some round 9 predictions and
did
some
the crosswords,
demos. Yes. But
You'd have been good at the crosswords.
Still do it.
Sudoku? No, okay, it stops there. Damo's News is coming up next. We'll talk about the Pies, who they're not taking over to Perth, and a new rivalry is unfolding between Baz Lenker and his former side, the Bulldogs. This is Triple M Footy's Midweek Rub. Joey, Daisy and Damo, and we're just going. This is Triple M Footy's Midweek Rub. Fair dinkum or Fugazi up next, Damo, but The round 9 kicks off tomorrow night. Freo versus Collingwood, and the Pies are not taking a few superstars.
No, the management of its list is, I really find an interesting topic this year. We've now seen Craig McRae admit guys to actually playing less game time for some players in last week's game against Geelong. They nearly stole that late, as we know, with the Jack Crisp kick after the siren. But we now see them go across to Perth to play a beleaguered Fremantle on Thursday night footy this week without Pendlebury, Degoe, Myercheck and Maynard. Myercheck is carrying a form of an injury in a abdominal, I think, strain that he's got. But 4 big names they're choosing to leave out of this game. I think it's a really clever way to approach a 24-round season.
Yeah, I think it's smart. It's a marathon this season. When you've got the oldest team of all time, you need to put some things in place, and I think they're doing it the right way. They had this marked from the start of the season. They haven't flinched after a loss, which I give them credit for. And you're right, this is the plan to hold them in good stead for the back end of the season when it matters. And maybe you're sacrificing the 4 points this week, but their plan, and I think it's the right way to go about it, is it may pay dividends later in the year.
6 and 2 is the key to all of it. You had to have banked wins early, so you're in the position to do this, and you can go over to Fremantle, take those 4 blokes out of it, and still be more than competitive. I think they'll obviously have chances to win that game, but if they do lose it, it isn't the end of the world. Knowing what's to come, I like the fact that Craig McRae has openly said, hey, we are going to do this, and they are really just copying that Geelong model. They've gone that way with trying to get some older players in, and now they're following out throughout the season.
How will Scotty Pendlebury go, Days? And I ask that because he's obviously got half an eye on the all-time games record that he could be reaching next season, should he go through it. I mean, I know he's always going to put team above it, but is he someone who I would think wouldn't really like to miss too much footy?
I don't think he would like to miss too much footy, but this being a sort of rest and him being open to it, I think his mind shift has probably changed a little bit in terms of understanding I've nearly done it all. Does that really matter?
Yeah.
And if he can get there and tick it off, but his shift in terms of I just want to be playing the best football for this side as we can go on and try and have success again. I think that's sort of been a little bit of a shift in his mindset once he ticked over 400.
I think this would actually help him in the long run because if he's going to play good footy, he needs to be fresh. So in some ways, having a week off will keep him fresh, keep him playing at a high standard, which no doubt gives him the year contract next year anyway, and then he'll be able to get the games record. So I think it's smart by him as well.
Yep. Days, you touched off the top, the Bailey Smith juggernaut that's unfolding in 2025. The form that he's displayed for the Cats, his new team, has been extraordinary. I think he's probably leading or very close to the Geelong best and fairest. He might even be figuring in some Brownlow medal votes, which we'll know at the end of the year. But the preparedness to say things and do things publicly away from football, I love, and I think the three of us in this, and Rabsy, in this conversation do love it. The fact, though, that Marcus Bontempelli has bought in publicly as well, and I just want to talk to you guys about it from the perspective of the attitude itself and how the clubs relate generally to this type of behaviour, because it is potentially a distraction.
No, I think this is just all banter and tongue-in-cheek, and I think the Western Bulldogs know Bailey Smith as well as anybody. They know what he's like, and Bevo said it in his presser. He's got no filter. It's the way that he is. I don't see this as a genuine rivalry. I think it's just some good banter and a bit of fun.
You don't think he's flat at all at the Bulldogs?
Not really. Not really. I think he's okay. He's moved on. It was always going to end. I like this, but I think it's more banter and tongue-in-cheek than a serious rivalry.
I think it's awesome. Yeah. If nothing else, it's good for the game, and that game now becomes a lot more interesting with the byproduct of does Bevo send someone out to just shut him down, which the answer has to be yes. You need to make sure that he doesn't.
Do they play that way, though?
No,
they
dogs don't.
Do
no, they don't tag, no.
You don't. You reckon Bevo let him have 30 and kick 2 and maybe be the match winner?
Bevo just want to win the game.
Wow.
I think so.
He won't change
You can't change your key.
That's probably the maturity of Bevo now, though, compared to what we might have.
If Bevo did do that, then that's a win for Bailey Smith, that he would get in Luke Beveridge's head, that he would change what he would usually do just to try and quieten Bailey Smith. So I don't think Bevo would head down that path.
Yep. We'll time code this conversation. It's 10:46 on the Wednesday. I say that because I expect now the AFL to backtrack on its, I thought, weak decision on Monday to move on from what Willie Rioli did on the weekend. Obviously, Port Adelaide playing the Bulldogs on the weekend just gone in Ballarat, and the threat that Willie Rioli made to a teammate of Bailey Dale, basically telling him to be careful should he choose to leave his accommodation this week in Darwin for a game. And the fact that the AFL put it back on the two clubs to sort it out. Dale accepted the apology, and the AFL wanted us to all move on. We've since learned that Willie Rioli has had similar moments with other clubs in relatively recent times as well. And again, as I talk, I do expect the AFL now to actually come down with a proper sanction. I think they missed their moment on the weekend. I think it's made this issue far worse than it needed to be, and I think it's a complete and utter mess.
What was the context in which the message was shared? So the threat to not leave your hotel room, was it naivety by the person that it was sent to then share it, or was it genuine concern that, hey, I need to bring this to the attention of the club so it can be sorted?
Days, I think it's incumbent upon the person receiving it to report it to the club, because I work backwards in the way I approach things from a worst case scenario. And if that message is sent and received and not acted on, and then something happens to Bailey Dale in Darwin, we've got a bigger story on our hands there. Now, again, I don't think maybe deep down anyone felt that there was going to be a genuine danger on Dale in Darwin, but I feel you have to report it in that circumstance.
Yeah, I have a view that probably that is different sending a text afterwards as opposed to stuff that gets said on the field. I mean, Dave, if we go back to when I used to play against the Brisbane Lions boys or Mark and Jason, they used to threaten you all the time, but it wasn't anything that you would take as a serious threat. It was just on-field banter. But I think the text message post, you've probably got to take to a different level. But again, it does show the double standards of the AFL. I mean, we're talking weeks ago about getting a fine for sticking up your middle finger, but you can make a threat to someone and it gets sort of swept under the rug. So I expect the AFL to do something about it.
Has
today.
Port handled it badly in terms of they've known a couple of times now that these threats have been made on field and they haven't done enough about it?
I think they're managing a volatile person in Willie Rioli. I mean, we saw what he did again after a match of football against Hawthorn choose to do in social media, which he's got every right to express whatever opinion he wants. But again, it was unusual, and they effectively disciplined him in the way that they released their statement saying that we would prefer he didn't do this. That they're knowledgeable of some of these moments with him. And yeah, I just feel the AFL, had it done something on Monday, it would have been in a far better position today to now then deal with what has subsequently been said about it. But let's see if they can fix it up after the mess that they left with this situation on Monday.
Do you have a lens on what that punishment will be?
I can't see.
Suspended,
I just don't
fine,
feel he
weeks.
should be playing this week on the back of.
Will the AFL do that though, in terms of, because they're going to have to backtrack and say this was an issue and now they're admitting it is an issue?
And they're not in the history of doing that, are they? I mean,
No.
they maintained their stance on Noah Bolter despite the public pressure coming down before he was sentenced publicly. I do expect that. Let's see how it unfolds. I mean, it could be a moot conversation, the one we've just had now by the close of play today.
But the two more cases, though, they've got an avenue to go back on what they initially put out, though. The
Yeah,
AFL.
they do. But at the same time, to Joey's point, and not to downplay what is said on the ground, but to me, it's very different the morning after a game to consider it and then to target a teammate of the player who you did have the stoush with on the ground. That's a new level and a next level of infringement in my eyes.
I know we're speculating. What do you think's fair? I think if you come out $10,000 fine or some sort of fine would be okay with me. A suspended fine.
You're making a point that this isn't on. I understand you've gone and said a few things, and this is, there's obviously some issues at play that are causing this to be the reaction. Let's just park it and no more.
Just put one more line on it, just to give it the full context. He was targeted organically, if I can use that phrase, during the game by Bulldogs players. It wasn't a preconceived plan to bring him down, but the banter got going early and they maintained it throughout the game. I'm just throwing that in because there was a level of frustration that reached boiling point quite clearly. Tom De Koning playing for Carlton against St Kilda this Friday night. We've known now for some time of the massive offer the Saints have given him. It could be in the $1.7 million per season range. Just the scope and I suppose the actual match in question. Carlton playing St Kilda. What does it mean, guys? Is he trying to work it out in the confines of this game?
What does it mean? It's a good one.
Carlton have to start winning if he is going to even consider staying.
Yes.
Because if it's apples for apples, and one apple is worth, in terms of where we are in going to win a final or finals or that sort of trajectory, you walk every day of the week. If there's the sell that Carlton are a lot closer to a grand final, then the decision, I believe, becomes a lot harder. But
And Joey, as you answered that, I mean, if you had this conversation last week, Carlton having just come off a win against Geelong and St Kilda losing its third consecutive match in a row, you'd think, Blues have got a brighter future. But 1 week later, Carlton
Yeah,
gets
I've
belted
been hearing
and St Kilda wins.
this narrative. Apparently, Tom De Koning's mind is changing by the week, depending on who wins and loses. I don't think
And
it
that's
is.
what I'm asking, yeah.
I don't think it is. What I would say to any of the Saints players, don't sledge him, don't get down, don't say anything to upset him, because they would love to have him at the club next year. He'd be keen to put on a show. Saints will be interesting. Like, do they want him to play really well and go, oh, this is the guy that we are getting? Or
Does he stay?
No, I think the money is too significant. I normally have the view, if you're happy at your club and it's a couple $100,000 difference, most players stay because they would have that opportunity. If it's significant money, when you have to make a life-changing decision, that's when it probably tips in the favour of the club that's pursuing
And it could be as significant as much as $800,000
Five,
per
six, 7, 8
season.
per year, yeah.
Per
And
season.
That is hard to
Yeah.
knock back. And as Daisy said, when not necessarily there's a massive difference between the two clubs. Now, it might be a different story by the end of the year, but as of right now, it's not like you're saying, well, I'm going to stay at Carlton for premierships and team success, and St Kilda are going to be languishing at the bottom. It makes it very difficult.
Last one on him. Do you rate him as that person the Saints have identified to take them into the future?
Oh, that is a good question. He's a ruckman at the end of the day, so I hold some reservations there because, you know, a key forward can go and kick you 60, 70 goals and win games off their own boot. Whether or not a ruckman can do that, look, they've got to get somebody St Kilda, and if that's the fish that they land, they'll be certainly happy with it because he still has a heap of upside.
And that's important to say. And I've had a lot of St Kilda fans speak to me about that and say he's not worth it. But people have got to understand, you can only get a player that's available. And Tom De Koning is available, and they don't have to give up trade capital. And sometimes you have to pay overs. There's all these conversations, they need a midfielder or they need a key forward. It's like, yeah, but if there's not one available,
They're
you
saying
can't
no.
You can't just pluck one from the tree and say, we'll take him. So they need quality players at their football club. They need to add to their list. He's available. There's plenty of money in the salary cap. So I think it's the right move. I know it's going to be overs on what he probably should be getting, but what's the alternative? Keeping the money in the bank and not having him. I think they need to take him.
Well, that game, St Kilda versus Carlton, is at the Triple MCG on Friday night. It is Spud's game. We'll get you round 9 predictions soon. But up next, it's Fair Dinkum or Fugazi on Triple M Footy's Midweek Rub.
Still one of the all-time great movies, by the way.
Wolf of Wall Street.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Fair Dinkum or Fugazi?
Fair dinkum.
Yeah, there you go. Damo, serious one to straight up for you. Clayton Oliver won't be at the Melbourne Football Club next year.
Bang.
Won't be.
Bang, good start. Won't
Fugazi right now, because the market for him has dried up. Things can change, and the biggest thing that would have to change on that would be the Clayton himself getting his head around to basically break the contract he's got and to take a whole lot less money to make it more appealing for an opponent to make an offer. But under the current terms of his deal, no takers.
Geez, it's an interesting scrap heap at the minute,
it's an
isn't there?
interesting one.
There's some Ferraris that don't start.
So what is it, 1.3, 1.4 a year? No club's going to take...
It might even get up to 1.5 at various stages of the deal that goes to the end of 2030.
Daisy, if you wanted a fresh start, your Clayton Oliver, would you take $600,000 a year off your contract, say I'll play for $900 a year and go to another club for a fresh start, or do you sit on the 1.5 and stay at Melbourne?
Casey's not that bad.
You already gave up $800,000 at Carlton as well.
Take the Ferrari out to Casey.
Joey, providing he can stay fit, Patrick Dangerfield can win Geelong another flag.
Well, that's fair dinkum. The Cats can absolutely win the flag. They've been my pre-season tip, but they're right up there still right as of now. Again, just as long as they manage him right, that's the biggest key. Keep him fresh, keep him fit and firing. We've seen he's a match winner still. Yep.
Touched on this earlier in the news, but Daisy, Bailey Smith and Marcus Bontempelli's tit for tat is good for the game.
100%, that's fair income. I love this stuff. We're in an industry that's all about entertainment. And if you're going to bring some theatre for Baz Lenker, he can back it up as well. The Wizard and a little bit of byproduct playing out of the goal square and flipping the birds, and how do you like it? I think it's all great. $1,000, come on, the AFL. Like, just move on, but I think it's great.
Yep. Lost to the Lions on the weekend, Damo, but with games against the Western Bulldogs and Hawthorn, the Suns could be in for a reality check.
Fair income. I was really disappointed with what they dished up against the Lions. I want to believe what they've been telling us is about to happen. I'm yet to see it, and I thought they were blown away. I think the 17-point margin flattered them.
Zach Merritt, Joey, should be spoken about alongside current greats like Marcus Bontempelli and Christian Petrarca.
His record suggests that he should be. It's just the lack of final success and certainly not playing in grand finals that, unfortunately for him, just puts him in the tier below, which is not his fault because he's doing everything he can, but the team's success probably just doesn't quite put him there.
Daisy, the Bulldogs should lock Bevo into a new contract ASAP.
Fugazi, I think he's doing a fantastic job. He's coaching arguably as good as he ever had. That sort of media love that he's bringing now and just letting everybody shine onto him and him shining back.
It's clearly a strategy, isn't it?
But it's working.
Yeah.
You go out and you do the sit down with Tom Morris, which didn't really solve anything, but it just sort of changed the lens. And then for whatever reason, the universe has been kind. Sam Darcy goes down, but then all of a sudden everyone else starts to play better. Bont's back. I don't think they should rush into it because whatever's happening now, but I think at some point it'll come to, well, if you want me and you want Bont, you better get me signed away first because there's more chance of keeping Bont that way.
Does it help, though, Damo, now that he's basically publicly said, I won't be going anywhere else, which takes the pressure off the Western Bulldogs because the biggest threat would have been that another club would come poaching Luke Beveridge because he's such a great coach. Now, if he's committed to his word, which we generally believe him, there's no need to sign him anytime really soon.
Well, again, I'm not doubting his intent in what he said.
Yeah.
I honestly think he does believe that right now, but it doesn't mean he won't coach elsewhere.
Okay.
So, but just
Will
to
he
answer
be
that
fielding
part of
calls
your
already,
question.
though? Will there be clubs trying to plant the seed this early?
I've got the view that the connection he's got with Simon Garlick at the Fremantle Footy Club is a significant one. Now, that's not to say that anything has been done in terms of what they're going to do, but I think it's in the back pocket of everyone's thinking.
Just off tack, is it dangerous for a club to start making calls to other coaches while they've still got?
Yeah.
That's dangerous.
And
Does that happen? It would happen in the past. I mean, I don't know if that's a common occurrence because it's quite risky if you're a club to make. If it gets out though,
You
then
can
it
see
would,
both sides.
Oh,
of it,
you
though.
can, but it would be. I don't know if that'd be great for your culture if that's happening.
No, it's not. And I think sometimes, too, that approach could actually look badly upon the person you're actually approaching because they can believe, if you're doing that to the bloke who's already there, what are you going to do to me if it goes badly for me?
Yep.
Damo, talking about Sidebottom, Pendlebury, Gunston, Boak, club physios and sports scientists need to be praised for the season some of the veterans are currently having.
Add Zorko into that as well.
Tex Walker.
Add them all in. Yeah, they really are. There's been a mindset shift, hasn't there, from a club approaching the age of these players and not thinking that they need to be phased out, either in that game plan or in future seasons. They're just considered one of the crew, and their best is still used that way. And there's been a significant shift and a positive one.
One name that isn't on that list that should be is Sam Doherty.
Mm.
He's not being used by the Blues in the manner that he should be.
Okay.
I think they're lacking experience and the calmness in that back line when the game gets away from them. They're all fine when the game's going well, but even, some of the games of late and his form to start the year may not have been ideal, but he's playing wing and midfield. He's a genuine half-backer. Get him to half-back and actually help to make him play better. And we've seen it. If you actually allow these blokes who are good players and good leaders to play, it helps your side.
Joey, the Scott brothers are still as intimidating as they were during the 2001 to 2003 era.
I'll tell you, they're not as intimidating as they were when they were players because they were scary, but they are still. They've still got some aura about them and some intimidation there. I love listening to Chris Scott talk. I find him fascinating. I hang off every word he says, but yeah, they still do have that about them.
Didn't know they had to put out a weekly injury list, Chris Scott. Damo, Sunday's pre-match display shows just how tough Hawthorns fans have had it over the last 45 years.
Fair dinkum, yeah. And they just have this, not just hope, but a belief that another one's coming pretty soon. Fair dinkum.
10 flags in the last 47 years. It's actually ridiculous.
And just to remind people, because some people in footy still don't realise this, every decade since the 1960s, they've secured a premiership. And looking at you when I say that, Joey.
Yeah.
No, just to remind and to reinforce the might of this football club.
Yeah.
Jealous.
Joey, we touched off this off the top. NBA superstar Josh Giddey playing local basketball in Frankston this week. If the equivalent happened in footy, Toby Green playing local AFL nines, the AFL media would lose its collective minds.
100%. We'd be all over Toby Green. Yep. Yeah, that is fair income. As I said, I'm still wondering whether the Chicago Bulls actually know. I'm fascinated by that.
Finally, Daisy, I'm going to play you some audio.
Bramble to Richards again, to Bontempelli, playing second fiddle, the champion. He kicks inside the 50, up goes Karmas can't mark. Vandermeer the Rove, he's tackled, got a hand pass out, picked up by English, hand pass to Bontempelli, on his preferred side, a curling snap, the Bulldogs. What a day they're having in Ballarat.
So that's Al Nicholson calling for Triple M. He used to be at the ABC before moving to Channel 7. This is an Instagram comment we got. Fair dinkum or Fugazi on this. Al Nicholson being on Triple M is like the teacher having a dart with the kids behind the gym at lunchtime.
Fair dinkum. Al is an absolute beauty, and he is really starting to lean towards the Triple M style. I play a fair bit of golf with Al, and I wouldn't put him having a dart behind the sheds with the kids out of the question.
I don't think he would put it out of the question either. That comment came from J3MC.
Well done, J3.
Your round 9 predictions are coming up next. It's Triple M Footy's Midweek Rub. You can catch every game across round 9 on Triple M and the Listener app starting tomorrow night with Thursday Rub ahead of Fremantle versus Collingwood from Optus Stadium, Joey.
Yes, all eyes on Fremantle Dockers and whether they can respond. It's almost a bit of a no-win situation for them now because Collingwood leaving players out. If they win, everyone says, well, so they should have. If they lose, fool. But I think the bounce-back factor is real. We've seen it with a lot of good teams this year. Back at home, Collingwood resting players. I do think Fremantle should get the job done.
We've seen it with good sides. Do we consider Fremantle a good side? Because I certainly don't, so I'll be tipping the Pies.
Yeah. I've wrestled with this in the last 3 minutes. I'm going to go with Fremantle with no confidence.
And Hayden Young now out for another extended period as well, Joey. It's tough. Damo Spuds game at the Triple MCG Friday night. A special occasion, St Kilda versus Carlton.
Going to stick with the Blues. I know they were embarrassed last week against the Crows, but I like what they did the previous week against Geelong. If they bring that form, I feel they'll stack up pretty well.
Again, who's going to rock up?
Yeah.
That's the tough thing to sort of predict. I think the Blues will not get caught, hopefully, by Ross Lyon's trap, as we saw last week, that Fremantle were certainly doing. They have to be bold with the ball once they win it back from half back and not go lateral, because we know, and I expect Ross Lyon to just happily give you the switch all day long and then hopefully Carlton, do that. But I don't think they will. I reckon they learned a pretty good lesson in how the Crows played, which is similar to what the Saints did to Fremantle. Carlton with zero confidence.
As I've been reminded when I was in the rooms this year, every time I tip against St Kilda, they keep winning. So
Who reminds you of that in the rooms?
Cal Wilkie and Rowan Marshall said that's now twice. You've said that we're going to get pumped and we've won, so I'm going to do it again. Carlton will smash them and see if I can do the other reverse psychology thing. So Carlton will win.
Daisy, you like your small forwards. Jack Higgins is having some season, isn't he?
He absolutely is. Yeah, he's only a couple of goals off leading the Coleman medal in a side that doesn't historically kick a whole lot of goals. He's been really good. He's so damaging. And the thing that I love at the moment, he's doing it in different ways. He's on the lead, he's at ground level, and he's also sharing some off, which probably hasn't been a strong suit for a long time.
Stick with you. Melbourne versus Hawthorn, again at the Triple MCG. We had the BWS stat. Since 2018, Melbourne haven't lost to the Hawks.
Yeah, you won't be reading that next week. Fremantle. Hawthorn will be winning.
Tipping the Hawks.
The Hawks, yeah, no, that streak ends. Hawthorn will win. Hawthorn will win this one.
I'm with you on that one.
Joey, let's head to Marvel Stadium again on Saturday. Essendon versus Sydney.
This is probably the game I've wrestled with the most. In the end, I've just gone to who I think I trust more. Who's a better team? Sydney back in form. I'll go Sydney at Marvel Stadium, but no confidence.
Yeah, I'm got the same logic in saying the Swans with this too. They got some of their game back last week with the win against GWS. I needed to see it. They're now 3 wins, 5 losses, but I reckon they're a better outfit in the bigger picture.
I'll be tipping the Bombers here in an upset. I assume they're outsiders in this one, so they'll be my roughie purely for the fact that I'm not sure again, and the Marvel Stadium factor. Zach Merritt, yeah, good luck.
James Jordan will he's tagged him twice last year.
There's a lot
James
of games
Jordan,
that you're not really sure about.
Yeah.
Your point, I think we were talking about last week, the teams you can trust.
Yeah, there's not many.
Bugger all is the answer.
Yep.
Footy heads to the top end. Damo on Saturday. Arvo, Gold Coast versus the Bulldogs from Darwin.
Well, the trust component on this is the Bulldogs, but I'm going to go with the Gold Coast Suns to bounce back from what I feel was a pretty ordinary performance against the Lions.
Gold Coast Suns win when they play in Darwin. It's simple.
Got a theme here, the bounce back factor, just because they're very good at Darwin. Obviously, the Bulldogs I rate higher, but I think Darwin, Gold Coast should continue to win.
I think that's a good loss for them long term, the Gold Coast Suns, because if it had been a drier, more conducive to the football, the nice football, I think they would have been a lot more competitive against the Lions. It was hard, it was tough, it was down, it was dirty, it was finals-like, and they missed. So they learned some lessons.
They missed badly, though, didn't they?
Yeah, and I think that's the best thing.
Okay.
You're not ready to play with the big boys when it's like that.
Arguably, footy's best rivalry, Daisy, is the showdown. Port Adelaide versus Adelaide on Saturday night.
Yes. Adelaide, I think I take more on trust than Port Adelaide. I'm still believing in them, so I think they'll be winning. hopefully a high-scoring affair.
This is my outsider. These are just one of those games that Port Adelaide and Kenny Hickley get up for. They find the motivation, the arousal
He's in the
levels,
box doing the numbers.
all that. They were spanked last week. I can just see an upset, and I'm going to tip Port Adelaide as my roughie.
As you were talking, you've convinced me to do the same thing, Joey. Port Adelaide.
Continuing the theme of a really tough round to tip, Joey. Richmond versus West Coast at the MCG.
Yeah, can't tip West Coast with what they're dishing up. So have to go the Tigers for their third win for the season. I think they're going okay, the Tigers.
Richmond.
It's almost grand final day for the Eagles, isn't it?
Yeah.
If you're not winning this, what are you winning? I'm going to tip.
This is your third week in a row you've tipped West Coast.
Is it?
Yeah, you did it against Essendon. Your gut feel was that.
Yes.
Then I'm pretty sure your outside of last week was West Coast. You thought could upset Melbourne. Is that correct? I think.
Yeah, I think you did,
And there you
actually.
go on West
Yeah.
Coast again. Gee.
Calm the Tigs.
Someone's keeping tabs
Go
on
West
your
Coast
tips there,
again. You
Dave.
get it right.
Nah.
You get it right.
I'll tip. You know what? I'll tip a draw.
The Oracle.
If that happens, the Oracle's coming out. Geelong versus GWS GMHBA Stadium, Damo.
You know my theory. Just back Geelong every week, and it's usually good for you. So, Cats.
Cats at home are the proposition, but GWS at GMHBA have
Last
the best.
four. They won the last
they
four.
have an unbelievable record. A place that people go and can't win for years. The Giants take the piss. They were disappointing last week. The Giants. I'll tip the Giants.
I just have to go Geelong despite the record at GMHBA against the Giants.
And finally, Daisy, North Melbourne versus Brisbane down in Hobart. This one, Ninja Stadium.
Ninja Stadium. Hoya, Brisbane.
Yeah,
Can't
Brisbane.
tip North yet.
Started well and we're ending well.
Yeah,
Oh, dear.
that was a karate
Yeah,
chant.
it was good. Damo, any chance?
Yeah.
No.
Okay, there you go. You can catch every game across round 9 on Triple M and the Listen App. Starting tomorrow night with the Thursday rub ahead of Fremantle versus Collingwood. That's a huge game from Optus Stadium. Jack Heverin, Kate McCarthy, Isaac Smith, and Jay Z. Clark, the
Jay-Z.
Chief. This has been Triple M Footy's Midweek Rub.